Markets have recovered very, very smartly from the day's low. Bit of a touch and go moment with the red line for the Nifty today, but from the day's low, which is from yesterday's low, I beg your pardon, I think the recovery for the Nifty has been very smooth and very smart. It's metals which are bouncing back, and I think metals clearly are in a bull market. Every time you bought metal stocks in the decline, you've really made money. That really seems to be the broader market messaging so far, that as of now, markets are making a comeback, stocks are looking higher, mid-cap stocks are also looking slightly better than what they've looked in a long, long time. But the topic which we want to discuss at length is now is that after this entire PNB fraud and the entire channel which was being used by Nirav Modi and his group of companies was LC, that is letter of credit. Now, Indian exporters and importers, or I would say Indian businesses, they rely a lot on letter of credit in order to do global and local transactions. Historically, we've seen that every time there has been a fraud or there has been a question mark about a supply chain or about a process of lending, banks, they get into scrutiny mode and then they tend to really cut the channel funding. Now, if the channel funding is cut, what could happen to importers and exporters and other businesses? And also, what about the ground reality? How could this fraud happen? And what are the safeguards which banks now need to do to protect this kind of a fraud again? So I'll take the conversation forward first with Dr. Ajay Sai, DG and CEO with FIEO. Ajay, good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm going to ask you a rather simplistic question. My understanding of the entire import and export businesses, that business houses, they rely a lot on letter of credit. After the PNB fraud, do you think there would be additional scrutiny and there could be a challenge to open large LCs, at least for exporters and importers?
I personally feel that there is no need for such knee-jerk reaction. The fraud which we are referring to is a case of collusion and conspiracy which has been facilitated because of the lack of internal control, surveillance and multiple layer audits. I personally feel that gems and jewelry sector is passing through a time when they are coming back on trail. They have already been hit by demonetization and GST. The global situation is looking pretty good. There is increasing demand from US, Europe and Far East. And this is the time where we should try to support the sector. I will treat this as an individual cases because if you look into the banking system and look at the compliance, a normal exporter, the MSME, he struggles to get a credit of around 1 crore rupees without a collateral. And here we are seeing that the credit to that extent has been given without any margin money and without fixing any credit limit also. So I will treat this as an individual case and I hope that this should not result in affecting the flow of credit to the sector, because this sector is extremely crucial at a time when we are looking for jobs into the country. Look at the huge employment which the sector provides, and these kinds of cases should be treated in an exceptional manner rather than putting into the system and where you blame the sector or a category of entrepreneurs for that.
Is it just a coincidence that it's not for the first time, but for the third time in less than 10 years, a banking fraud related with the jewelry sector has been discovered?
No, in fact, let us admit the fact that diamonds or gems or jewelry are little intangible in nature. It is becoming very difficult for or for a banker to distinguish between, let us say, synthetic diamond and a natural diamond, or between a rough piece and a polished piece. That is precisely the reason I think there is need to have some expert to deal with this trade. And that's why I propose that there should be specific branches to look into the demand of this sector.
Ajay, morning. What is your take on the PNB Nirav Modi fraud case, though? Because there has been an incident earlier of Winsome Diamonds just last year. Now, although PNB case is a case of collusion, we look at both these incidents in entirety, and that both the incidents have really tainted the industry. What is your view on how, the situation is only getting murkier by the day? And now Nirav Modi, just as last night, has again sent another letter to PNB saying that, PNB is just maligning his brand and the name of his company.
No, in fact, I will not like to go into the individual details because I'm not privy to the FIR which has been filed. But let me tell very clearly that these are the isolated cases. Let us not blame a sector, but at the same time, I also feel that the large company in the sector needs to keep their operations separately. They should have a separate division for, let us say, for procurement, a separate division for polishing, and separate division for marketing, so that this kind of round tripping, which is at times attributed to the sector, is at all avoided. For small companies, it may not be possible, but again, I will come back to the same issue, how so much money has been given to a particular company without any margin money and without fixing the credit limit. So it's basically a lack of internal control, lack of supervisory, rather than you can say that this is something which has happened because the money was given to the diamond sector.
Okay, I completely take your point, Mr. Sahai, that Nirav Modi case is a case of high value, high profile scam. Let's leave that aside. But a lot of traders and firms in the industry to which banks do lend are relatively smaller besides bank credit. How is it that these firms typically manage liquidity requirements?
No, that's why I'm saying that many of times they rely on the informal sources of lending, which increases the cost of lending. That's why I'm of the view that bank should have a fair assessment of credit requirement of the sector and accordingly lend it. I won't mind if they go through their balance sheet little carefully, analyze them before lending it. But this is a sector which provides huge employment opportunity, and that's why at this point of time, I think the biggest task before us is to put the credibility of Indian banking system. This is something, a fraud where a guarantee was issued by a public sector bank, which is more close to or akin to a sovereign guarantee. So first of all, let us put the sovereign guarantee on the fast track, address whatever is the money which is due to the sector. Secondly, I think bankers need to be little working closely with the industry, and I would approach the problem through a cluster based approach where banks in a particular cluster, let us say we are talking about the Surat, banks may open a diamond branch or a gem and jewelry branch in those areas where they understand the need for that. If you have officers who specialize in this kind of assessment and valuation, you will be more close in meeting the requirement of the sector.
As per the Reserve Bank of India data, the banking system is already lending about 70,000 crore rupees to the industry. And a recent report by Care Ratings suggests that banks typically lend about 5 to 10% turnover exposure to the sector per se. If at all this credit goes slower, or if the cost of capital rises, what would it then mean in the entirety for the industry?
No, in fact, if the flow of credit to this sector slows down, naturally it will have huge implication on our exports as well as the employment creation. Look at gem and jewelry sector, it provides export to the tune of $43 billion and direct indirect employment to the tune of around $6.5 million. So any adverse impact on that, and let us keep in mind that sector has always passed through tough time during the aftermath of demonetization and introduction of the GST. The sector is bouncing back, and if this is time any kind of disruption happens, it will have huge impact on the sector.
Appreciate your time. Glad you could join us.